Okay, at this time, we want to open the meeting for August 21st of the Carver Conservation Commission. Our first order of business is the appointments and discussions which the agent has arranged. So if you would.
Oh, yes. For Andrews?
For Andrews Point.
Yep. You can come up here. He wants to talk to us about some proposed work on an existing wall that he has. So we wanted to discuss it before he goes ahead and files.
Okay.
You know,
Sign in, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Two Shore Road, Beecham Road, but again, I say, whoops. And you are, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for including me in this night's agenda. As stated, the objective here tonight was just for me to review with you two things that I'm attempting to do in the next spring-summer timeframe. Both of these projects are intended to improve what is there today. Both of these projects are clearly within 65 feet of Sampson's Pond. And so that's why I'm looking for the committee's view of what I should and shouldn't be doing as I proceed. I did put together some informal things, if that's okay to pass to you, just hopefully help you understand what we're doing here a little bit.
Could you give us your name? I'm sorry, I don't want to be ignorant.
Apologies. Robert Andrews.
Thank you.
Reside at 4 Andrews Point Road.
Are you connected to the Andrews of Andrews Point?
Yeah,
Okay,
the
you're
street
just
name was there long before me, but my
it's a
family's
family.
been in town a long
Yeah.
time.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
This would be the second.
Oh, nice.
Will there be a test after?
I hope not.
Keep one of each of these.
So if we want to look at the graph paper, if you will, and we talk about the first project, the objective here, so there's an existing patio that's 10 feet wide by 34 long. And the request is to, first of all, that patio is in a bit of disrepair. It's not terrible, but there's settling that naturally would occur with brick. And so there's a desire to regrade and get all of the problems out of it. But while we do that, there are some things that were really not considered properly in the initial construction or design. So what we would like to do is take a 6-inch step out of the design. So the main portion that's 34 by 10 would come up 6 inches in height. We would add to the east side of the patio a triangular shaped piece that would match what exists on the westerly side, and then extend the whole thing out 4 feet. That would just make it a whole lot more user-friendly than its existing 10 feet. So that is really the scope of the project. It's currently brick, just laid in sand. I'm not particular about what goes back, so if the committee has some thoughts on that, the desire is, I mean, when it was built, it was what color brick would you like, right? But today, there's a lot more choices available. I certainly would like to consider the choices that exist, but if for some reason the committee would like brick put back, then the brick can get put back. So very flexible on that piece of it.
Just where's this extend patio 4 feet? Where's that extension?
It's the deck.
That's the screen, okay, the,
Yep.
screened-in drawing, okay.
And I did take some pictures from a second-story window, and that's kind of looks down on it, gives you a little bit of perspective of what goes beyond the patio. It's lawn, beach, water. I hand wrote in there, I took some measurements so that you can appreciate where this patio is relative to the water. I took the measurements off of the top of the wall. I don't know that that's necessarily correct, but it's at least a fixed thing. If you attempt to go to the water line, you know, it's different in the spring than it is in the fall, so, you know,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not sure how you would choose to look at that.
Okay, well, this is something we'll have to take a look at, I'm sure.
Yeah, would encourage, you know, seeing is always
Right.
great, so would absolutely encourage all of you to visit, and would love to show you the project in better detail.
Okay, the agent will, does she have your contact information? And your phone number
I
and all
believe
that?
you
Yeah.
do,
Yeah,
but
I do.
it is now here, so.
Oh, good, okay. Yeah, I did go out originally when they asked to be on,
Uh-huh.
but, you know, because they wanted to know, they didn't want to
Right.
go to the cost of getting, you know, and it all engineered and everything, and file a notice when they weren't sure, you know, what you would say, so. So if you want to see it before they file?
No.
Well, that would be improper, because he'd be looking for an answer of should I bother
Right.
moving forward, and we wouldn't be able to discuss that.
Right.
Right.
I would,
Tim?
very, very quickly, if I may. Number one is you don't know what you're going to use for your deck. So we're kind of lost there. And there's so many things here that you really, going out there at this point would not help us any, because you don't even know what you're going to use for material. My suggestion is to file a notice of intent, an NOI, listing your materials and so forth and so on. And at that point, we have a clearer picture of what you want to do, and then we'll go visit once the notice of intent is delivered to us. We just don't want to go out there and say, oh, in 6 months they're going to be back. Then we're going to have to go back out there again and look. So what I would like, and it's totally up to the commission, is that you submit to us a completed notice of intent, explain exactly what your material is going to be, exactly from the water's edge where it's going to be, so forth and so on, so we can make a more of an educated look at what you have. At this point here, I like the idea, but you have to tell us what to do. We can't tell you what type of finishes to use. You have to tell us what you want, and we'll say yes or no.
Yeah,
Fully understood. I just wanted to do this the right way and not overstep.
No, I understand.
No,
And
no,
then have,
so I'm just giving you direction
and that's
as to
fine.
what you can do.
it looks like you want to extend with the brick,
Yeah.
same
further out.
as
Yep.
previous, okay?
Yep, exactly. And as I said, I'm perfectly happy putting the brick back if that's something that,
We're not saying you have to. We're
Okay.
saying that put there what you feel, as long as it's porous enough to pull in water. No, you know, nothing, no bituminous, none of that stuff. And then we'll look at what you have, and we can make a decision at that point. But right now, I mean, it's pretty, but there's no way for us to tell you what to do. Because we
Okay.
don't know what you really want.
okay, that's perfectly fine.
It looks, just to get a little scale on this, Rob, it looks as though you currently have a garden area between the brook?
Yep, there was a
brick.
combination of shrubbery and perennials in there.
How wide is that?
It's about 4 feet, 3.
So you're proposing to put the patio out to the,
you-
approximately the edge of that?
You could
Are
look
going-
at it that way, yes.
Are you going to replicate that garden on the other side?
I probably wouldn't.
You would just have the grass come up to the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I would do.
All right. And everything will be raised up 6 inches?
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Okay, because then you would have to, obviously, in your notice of intent, come up with whatever you would be using as your wall between the lawn
Okay.
and the brick.
I
And
mean-
as Tim said, a pervious surface is really what's required here, something that lets water through. Brick is pretty good because it's not tightly spaced and there's a lot of space around it, and water goes through brick.
Okay.
concrete pavers, and concrete are, not nearly as good.
So just from my knowledge, if I was to propose paving stone, which, now in today's times is great variety there, is that something that you would consider, or you prefer not to see paving stone?
It would really depend on the
Gaps.
density of the paving stone and how much water goes through it. Water goes through brick pretty well.
Oh, it does, for sure.
And you're within the non-impervious zone. Nothing impervious can go within 65 feet without a variance.
Okay.
So the more you keep it
Natural.
natural, or allowing the water to get through to the ground, especially that close to the
The better
pond,
off you're going to be.
the better off it's going to be.
Okay, understood.
But it would also depend upon the size of the stone, right? I mean, if it's going to be a 18 by 18, it's different.
Yes, I mean, it all comes in. I mean, a brick is, you got,
Exactly.
they're small, so you've got a lot
understand
of
that.
gaps
Area
around it.
them and
If
so
he were to
forth.
use you could try to design it several different ways, and if you saw a 6 by 6 that you like the looks of, you could present that and then see how the board went with it, as opposed to coming in with something that's going to be 24 by 24.
Right. Less
and
space.
something
less-
solid. There's nowhere near the permeable surface that there would be if it was 6 by 6 with sand in between the joints.
No, that's good input, thank you. That's what I'm looking for.
In
really,
other
so
words,
that I-
design what you'd like to have, and the worst that's going to happen is this commission will say, you can do this, but you can't have that.
Okay.
That's the very worst that'll happen, and you know what I mean? So I
Well, the
don't
worst
think,
that could happen, we could just say no.
well, we could say no, but I'm saying, assuming
Go to all that cost and then they'll say no.
Design what you want,
Sure.
and then we'll, then we have something to start with and go from there.
Okay.
Okay, thanks then.
Excellent.
We'll be in touch with you about
Oh.
coming out to see it, and the members all looking at it, so on.
Okay, that'd be great.
Thank you, Mr.
And I
Anderson.
can get you
The
copies of the
existing
forms and
patio
stuff.
with.
I think this is
Yeah.
also something he wanted to talk
One for the
about, this is
deck.
to enclose this, so we can address that at that time.
When we're there, yeah,
He could actually put these in the same NOI, couldn't he?
probably.
Oh, I would put it all in one NOI.
Yes, yes.
Put both of these
Yeah, put
projects in the
everything.
single NOI, so you don't
Yeah.
have to file it twice.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there value in me describing the second portion of this project, or
Not at this
at this
time.
point, you'd rather
Yeah.
just see
Yeah.
it formally submitted?
Yeah,
Okay,
No,
And that one, you're only
That's pretty-
you're only enclosing that area anyway, right?
that's correct.
Yeah, so that's probably not as,
yeah,
Yeah, what we're doing there is just essentially removing what's there.
Yeah.
Putting an appropriate foundation and enclosing that area.
yeah. Yeah, so
Make
I
it
put it all in
interior
one
li-
NOI.
And that is, that's much more, there'll be architectural involvement there. Joe Webby's gonna work on a site plan,
let him do the NOI.
because there's, not concern, but
Enlarging the
there will be questions about side lot lines.
Right,
So we want to make sure that that's all.
yeah, so you have to go to building
So for
department.
that piece of the project, we'll have Joe Webby involved, we'll have an architect involved,
keep the same footprint.
Okay.
but it is existing patio that
That's
we're just
brick. The
essentially
seams
enclosing,
and
right?
Yeah.
slats on the top.
Okay, thanks.
The water
Good.
does
Vinny.
go through the
Thank
top
you.
into there.
Excellent.
Now, our informal discussion on Two Shore Road. Is there anybody here for that?
I would just make a
come up,
comment as I
please.
did earlier. Just make a comment as I did earlier, I think.
Come
You
up,
might have
please.
something to say about that, or you want to let it go?
About what?
This section here.
We'll wait.
No, not without an NOI.
Oh, all right, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You,
If you'd sign in, sir, on the,
Sure. Okay, that was quick.
this is the group of cottages at the north end of Shore Road?
It is, yeah. Yeah, my name's Kenny Hanson. I live at 2B Shore Road, and the 6 small cottages and 2 normal-sized houses. I'm sure you guys are probably more familiar with it than I am, but I've been there about a year, and there was some discussion from the members about, fixing up the beach. There's a small beach area on the
Yes.
left side of, I think, pretty close to where you are, and it's about 30 or 40 feet long, and then I was told there was an incident in the past where one of the residents had tried to put in some sand and either didn't do it properly or didn't have the proper permits, and then they were told to remove it. So they said, there's nothing we can do. And I said, well, let me make contact. So I had emailed Brooke, and I expected just to get a no, I've served on boards in other towns, and conservation is usually very conservative, I guess, and so I just expected a no and maybe another no. But Brooke was very helpful, and she said, in the past, the commission has, I'm just paraphrasing, either frowned upon or not allowed any type of sand to be brought in to dress
That
up.
hasn't changed.
Okay.
Nah, we're easy.
Our policy has been to allow a resident to rebuild the beach by bringing the sand out of the pond to the shore,
I got you.
and not to truck sand in,
I got you.
because that just ends up building up more and more and more, and as 32 trucks later, there's no pond left.
No, Brooke had mentioned that. She said you certainly can take sand out of the pond and
Right.
and use that to re-nurture the beach, and
Yeah.
that was something I wasn't aware of, so I guess that's one way to go. And
But that's by hand and not by machine.
correct. With the shovel you're talking about, or
Yeah, with
pick it up
shovel.
Yeah.
By shovel.
with your hand?
No, I,
Shovel.
So is this the bigger beach that you're talking about? The one that's the main?
Next to the
Because
boathouse?
This right in front of your place.
As you come into Shaw Road, the road toward closest to the town, it's that
Go.
little beach right there. It's steep.
Are you talking
Yeah.
about same
Right,
beach that was
That
filled
one
with
that we
sand
looked
that
at
we made them take
before,
out?
right?
from the water, it's the beach to the right of the boathouse, the garage.
From Shaw Road, it'd be to the left of the boathouse.
Yes, from the
Yeah,
water.
From the pond to the right, I'm sorry.
Yes, it's the big beach with the
Right, and I
fire pit
think
in-
that's,
the
I
fire
don't know,
pit.
30 feet or something like that?
Yeah.
30, 40 feet, and there's a boathouse, and there's a removable dock there. And so, we were just,
Yeah, I know.
without doing anything, I said, well, let me see if I can make
Yeah,
contact,
yeah.
and Brooke was good enough to
Came in with a
say,
big
hey,
dump.
sometimes you sit down with a committee, and we can come up with some resolution. So on the one hand, we can dig out with a shovel from the pond and use that, and no bringing in any sand, even if it's native sand, because it'll
Correct.
wash into the pond. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
Um,
What we're really more interested in having Two Shaw Road do is to reduce the number of trees that are sitting right next to those cottages, because if we get the proper storm, you're going to have a bunch of split-sided cottages.
Which trees are you talking?
All the big pines that are,
All around there.
There's hundreds of them.
yes, well, they are, but they've got to,
Only
they've got to
takes
be
one to
removed
flatten
to
one of
some
those
degree,
things
yeah.
out.
So what are you suggesting?
Well, remember we had the gentleman came in. He
We
was gonna
we
come to
did a
us and-
site visit
And
there
then we did the site visit, right.
last year.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, if there's some trees in particular you think are...
Well, there's a couple that are like 4 inches off of the cottages, and if some
Yeah,
of
the
these
cottages
trees,
on the right.
literally, some of these giant pines, they're breaking 10 and 12 feet up in the air, and if one of them snaps, it's gonna
Yeah.
level a couple of houses in one whack.
Right.
But in fairness, that's not us.
No.
That's
not-
Well, they had
It's a
asked us,
I don't want to get
they had
involved.
asked us for the
I don't wanna get
approval
involved
to
with
take
that
some
at
down.
all.
So we did grant an approval
to take some down,
to
yes.
take some down that were the ones that were bad. I don't know if they were ever taken down or not, were they?
Yeah, I don't
They
know.
took,
Take a
well, they
bunch.
took a few of them down.
There were a
We
few
approved.
taken
That
down
one-
for sure,
That
yeah.
one girl, they were right on the
Yeah.
power lines, yeah. I
Is
think
that because they're within the 100-foot
Yeah.
no disturb zone?
Yeah.
Yeah, the house next to mine in the storm, I think 2 years ago, had taken down 3 or 4 and removed.
might
But
be
but he
the-
said he had to get permission and
Yeah.
Yeah.
went ahead and did that. But yeah, there's some there that are kind of tenuous, and I guess that's not part of the purview of this board, right? That would be,
Well, if it's within 100 feet.
But if it's
of the
beyond 100
waterfront,
feet, then it would
If it's
be-
beyond 100 feet, right, it's up to the homeowner.
each individual
completely.
owner, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I've done this 3 times at my house. The last time I had 22 pines taken down.
Yeah, well, my house was hit last year, and I, had to repair some shingles and whatnot, so
Yeah.
I get that. Weeds, is there any restriction on what you can or cannot do with weeds?
Pull them out.
I mean, there's a thing called a lake rake. Are you familiar with what that
Yeah.
is? It's just a rake, and you throw it out, and you kind of pull it in with a rope, and it pulls in. Is that allowable?
To a certain extent, yes. I mean,
So if you go out
the sand
20,
is
30
there.
feet-
Most of what you're going to find there close to the beach, up to probably waist high if you're going out in the water, is more dead leaves than it is
Okay.
weeds. It's just stuff that has fallen over the years. It's muck on the bottom.
Right.
I'm around the corner, I'm on the north side of Sampson's Pond, and that's really all that's there. I use a rake to
Okay,
move.
I noticed, I saw one of the neighbors use it when he would throw it out, and then he had a rope over his shoulder and he'd walk away, and
Yeah,
it would be kind of mucky for a while, but then, so that's
Right.
okay to do if you go out 20, 30 feet
yeah, yeah.
with a track excavator? No, just the rake I'm talking.
Just the rake.
We'll get you.
Yeah, great all.
And my beach I replenish every spring by doing that, by taking wheelbarrows full of sand. I just shovelfuls at a
You shovel
time
them out and
into a wheelbarrow and put it up on the top of the beach. The rain and the people walking on it works it down.
All righty.
And next spring I'll do it all over again because it'll all be in the water.
all handwork, yep.
It's all handwork.
You guys have been very helpful, and Brooke, especially you, thank you for the good
Thank you,
responses.
thanks for checking. That's-
Okay.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming in and asking about this, because there are too many people that do it, and we catch them, and that's when
It's a
all-
beautiful spot, and I
That's
heard
when
about the
everything hits
lady
the fan,
next
and
door,
it's
and I said,
never
no, we don't
pleasant."
want one of those episodes, so let's find out what we can
But we've already
get.
been down there once. You don't want us back there, that's for sure.
When the woman next door was taking her sand, after we asked her to remove it, and they were using a bobcat to take her sand off, they undercut a little bit more than just the sand that they had brought in,
Yeah.
revealing a sandy beach that was there all along. So,
Okay. Thanks a lot for your help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so look on to business.
Well,
Something
there's
more.
the first two under business.
Yeah.
The gentleman from Shoestring couldn't come tonight because he had to go to the hospital with his wife. But anyway, I called him and talked to him and told him what we saw about the brush in the bog. He hasn't been out there for a while. His daughter's been going out there. He said he hadn't been out there for a while. So he's gonna go out, get rid of the brush in the bog, and then he's gonna, the trails that are coming, from Miles Standish, he's, because I said we weren't sure if that was, the people that are using his bog,
Yeah.
are they using those trails? So he's gonna find out about that and try to, he didn't really, he
Mark
wasn't
it
aware.
properly, yeah.
Yeah, so he wasn't sure what they were being
He
used
probably
for.
wasn't paying attention.
Right. So anyway, he hasn't been out there for a while, so he's gonna, let us know.
So he's going to give us an update, and we're going to follow up with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will send you the pictures that I took when we were out there.
Oh, good, okay, yeah,
So we have them for the next meeting.
yeah.
All right,
Okay,
cool.
so that will continue that then.
Okay, and then 17
17
Wareham,
Right.
Chris Malowski, he couldn't make it.
Oh, how
So
strange. Okay.
the only update that he has
Wait a minute.
is, this is the 17 Wareham, the question about the business and the
Yeah, yeah.
wood. Yeah,
I drove by there the other day, there was no wood lights.
so he's in the process of filing a permit to run a business with more than one employee. But then he lost an employee, so now he's a solo operation. So, but he wants to finish the permit filing when he gets new employees.
He has told us this and a number of other stories over the last few months. He's never once filed a thing with the planning board. He's never filed anything with the zoning board of appeals to get permission to do some of the things that he says he's wanted to do. So I don't really feel that we're getting much sense of cooperation. And because of the fact that he's taken a upland bog and filled it in, I feel that we should start an enforcement order process against him.
Which we did before.
Yes, and then we withdrew it.
And then have him file a notice, because he did say that he wants to store the wood for personal use.
This has been the story, personal use, but the wood comes in, and then it goes back out again with some, so it's not for personal use, he's using it for sale.
Yeah, he's buying it wholesale, selling it retail.
So he would wish to, but he still wants to continue to store it in that bog,
No,
No, he
he can't.
can't.
He can't. Let's
Right.
which is what we
We'll tell
told
him.
him he had to file
That's
a
right.
notice.
let's hit him with an enforcement order.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
this
so
has
we'll
already
work
gone
that
through
out.
a hearing process, so it's not like we're talking out of school.
Right.
There's a 200-foot setback from the
We've
river.
been talking to him long enough.
Not only that, he hasn't done anything to restore the buffering along the riverfront that he cut down completely and that we instructed him to work on. Now, that's been almost 4 months.
He was supposed to plant a bunch of trees on
Yes.
top of the bog walk, which he's never done either.
Yes.
So yeah, it's time. We've given him every chance.
I can contact his consultant again too, because,
Right.
if we want him to file something, I'll just tell Mark that we're gonna
Well, that guy's
But
just
whether he
a,
files with the planning board has nothing to do with us.
right.
That's the business.
Yeah,
So,
part.
and
at
that
this
guy's a
point in
sweet
time-
talker anyhow.
Right.
His
At this point in
consultant was a
time,
sweet
it's,
talker.
we're right back to why I didn't want to kick out the last order,
Right,
enforcement order.
right.
Because I didn't like the way it looked. So let's put another enforcement order in place, send a copy to the state this time, and let's do it the right way and stop being the nice guys that get bowled over.
Yep.
That's it.
End of conversation.
Well
All right,
said,
good.
Alan.
So saying that he can't do anything within the
200 feet. Get it all out of there, every bit of it.
And just let us know so we can come by and sign it, because you're going to need some
We
signatures on
bent over
that.
backwards. For the audience, we bent over backwards for this particular applicant.
Oh, he said applicant.
We gave and gave and gave and went out there on numerous site visits and came up with solutions and leave this pile where it is, even though it's the wrong place to have it for now, because we don't want to make you move it twice. You might end up with the variance to put it here. And thank you so much, and it went from this is our personal wood to this is wood that I sell the way it is. It comes in a truck and goes out in the truck, and now it's back to his personal wood again. So,
No.
it's all over the place, and it's just been buying time, so,
Okay,
It's
good.
his personal wood, but he wants to get a variance to have a business.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because they have 2 fireplaces, not even a wood stove.
You don't understand how much wood was there. I mean, we're talking logs that were
Trees.
15, 20 feet high.
was all tree
by
length.
20, I mean, just forget it.
Okay,
So,
so.
Sorry.
Next item
So
is
just-
Paul Gregory from the DCR about a dry hydrant on Barrett Pond.
And you remember, you and
Yes.
me and Savory went and looked at this quite a little while ago. Probably about a year ago. Oh, thank you.
Now, that's up,
we'll be nicer to you guys, don't worry.
Only if you sign in, though.
Oh, absolutely.
You guys have your own
Sir.
copy,
Yeah.
but you may refer to this.
okay.
Oh, this is definitely no.
Don't say that. Our chief's here.
Only kidding out there in TV land.
We'll have to call the chief up as a character reference.
Jessup Road, is that the name for the main road around the,
I believe so. Jessup Road?
Correct.
Cool. Jessup Road.
yeah. 'Cause I walk there quite a bit, and
How far
I've
onto
even
the
thought about
pond are they
camping at
putting
Barrett Pond. A little silly since I live in North Carver.
The
but I-
main road that goes around?
Yeah, yeah.
Going up quite a ways.
So this is not an NOI, though, this is just a,
Yeah. Because it was something we talked about, we weren't really sure.
And it's a, it's a environmentally friendly request to help protect the forest.
okay, I'm ready.
How far out
Okay.
the pond do they go? Let's see. 187 feet.
You guys know what Barrett Pond is in the pockets?
Yeah.
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 You don't
Yeah.
have a locus map?
But we're good. It's a different protection of the people. I don't have a problem with
It's
this.
not that far.
Yeah, we went out, we gave them permission a while ago. I don't know why they're back.
It's not that
We'll
far.
find out.
Remember, well, we drove in a little ways.
Yeah, yeah, it's just, it's the first, if you go to the junction by the headquarters, and then take the road up toward Plymouth, it's the
Halfway
first
Pond.
pond you'll see up
Halfway
on the
Pond
left.
Road.
And
Halfway
there's,
pond, oh, is that
Oh, I
what?
know where it is.
yeah.
Now you got
Where
it.
you see the equestrian parking
Yeah, yeah,
Close to
down
that.
that way, yeah.
I remember it.
Is this
Okay,
pipe
Mr.
just
Barrett?
going to lay right on the surface of the bottom of the pond? Is that
Well,
what
let's
it
let
is?
them present. Let's let them present.
Oh, okay. I thought they did.
Good
I thought it
evening.
was over.
Good evening.
My name is Michael Marquardt. I'm the Forest Fire Warden for Plymouth County. I'm headquartered out of Miles Standish State Forest. To my left is Paul Gregory. He's the management forester, and he's also headquartered at Miles Standish State Forest. To my right behind me is Mr. Tom Valton. He's the Director of Stormwater Management and Environmental Issues for the DCR. I'll start by giving you a little bit of history and kind of the reasoning we're before you this evening. And I think Paul can go into some of the, the ecological things, and Mr. Valton can cover the actual construction if there are any questions regarding the installation and construction, if you so approve. So, as many of you probably know, Miles Standish has a deep wildland fire history. I arrived at Miles Standish State Forest and became the district fire warden approximately 6 years ago. I arrived in 2010, and throughout my time here, I just, over the summers, I've noticed that the depths of the ponds have reached points where it was inadequate and in some instances unsafe for my staff and personnel, or possibly the town of Plymouth and Carver firefighters, to actually draft out of those ponds in a conventional method that they typically would. And I proposed to my boss and the administration of the DCR that we take a look at maybe installing some dry hydrants in the ponds and strategically place them for better water access and availability of water to combat wildland fires in the state forest. And when we did this, my number one priority when we were planning this is to have a lot of conversations with both the Carver Fire Chief, Chief Weston, and Chief Bradley from the town of Plymouth, and also Chief Ruley from the town of Wareham, although there are no ponds that lie within his jurisdiction. But we wanted to do this right and make sure that the connections were correct and met all the needs of the local fire departments, because they're going to utilize these in the event that we have a fire in there. So we if you will, we pitched it to my supervisor and DCR, and we were fortunate and applied for a grant through the U.S. Forest Service, and we were given about $150,000 in grant money to implement this project. Initially, we were looking at somewhere in the vicinity of 10 dry hydrants throughout the forest, like I said, strategically located at different ponds in different areas of the state forest. Due to some environmental concerns, we knocked that back to 6. Because we did implement and spend some money on rare plant surveys, wetland delineation, and things of that nature. And that's why that decision was made to knock off those other 4 dry hydrants. We had some informal conversations with Natural Heritage regarding certain locations, and they worked with us to identify some things that we may need to do to make this work correctly, to fit their needs as well and what they're looking for. So, and essentially in the name of public safety, if you will, we're requesting that you approve this one dry hydrant on the Carver, under the Carver jurisdiction at the backside of Barrett Pond off of Jessup Road. And I'll turn it over to Paul Gregory.
Just a few things. We did meet, as Mike said, we did meet with Natural Heritage. This was one site in which there was no records of rare plants, coastal rare plants around the border of the ponds. As there are in most of the larger ponds within Plymouth, there are rare plants which knock down our total from 10 to 6. They had no records of rare plants. They didn't request any rare species surveys as they did in Plymouth, and we hope to file with them within the next few days.
If I think you may recall, just 2 short years ago, if you will, some of you from the commission joined us on a site visit to this Barrett Pond location. And we've finally come to a point where we've got a plan. I think you have that in front of you, that was distributed by Paul. And I guess at this point, you folks have any questions for us regarding construction, installation, what?
Has anything changed from 2 years ago?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Essentially, we had to go through the process, approvals, if you will, through our administration, make sure that we got this plan correct, make sure that it fit with the requirements for the grant from the U.S. Forest Service. And you know, there's some terminology called wildland-urban interface, which means where homes are built in the forested areas, and, you know, we have that issue just within Miles Standard State Forest with 140 some odd cottages, and over the last several years, we've had 1 or 2 burned down a year from one reason or another, and even in winter months, these hydrants are gonna be usable. And I think that's just going to enhance our access to water for firefighting capabilities that much more. And like I said, I've had several discussions with Chief Weston regarding this, and I believe he's supportive of the initiative. And Chief Bradley certainly is, from Plymouth.
Is the chief here?
Yeah, you on board with this, Chief?
That's what we want to check. All right.
Yeah, I think we went out, when we went on the site visit, I think it was in the fall, because your plan at the time was to start it the next spring, I believe.
It was, yes, originally, yes, it was.
That's what I thought, and that was
Spring of
pretty...
18, yes.
Yeah,
pretty easy.
that was pretty cut and dried, and everything was fully explained out there, so I think it was,
Okay.
it was
Need a
fine.
motion, Mr. Chairman?
Well, I don't really, in the case of business like this, it's not a formal motion. We can approve,
Consensus?
yeah, just approve your activities. And
Give him an okey-dokey?
the okey-dokey, official okey-dokey.
I got my okey-dokey.
Okay, thanks, well, thanks.
All right.
Well, thank you very much for your
Keep us
time.
informed, that's important.
Have a great evening. Thank you.
Just
Okay.
it's public safety consensus.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay,
You have a good night.
You too.
see, now we've
See,
got
wasn't that easy?
a COC request for 36 Patricia Mullins Way. Is,
Yes.
that 36
This is the one on Priscilla Mullins where there were no wetlands?
Yeah,
Because it fell under an order of conditions for the whole subdivision.
right.
And probably the majority of the houses there are not anywhere near wetlands. There were wetlands, you know, down at the beginning. So we went, took a
And
look.
looked. And agreed
No
that there were no wetlands on site.
But it showed, now he's selling the house and it showed up as
Okay.
a lead.
So you,
So,
all right.
so there's no, you
COC.
need to sign it.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the COC for 36 Priscilla Mullins Way, DEP number SC 126-36.
I'll second that.
Who's got it?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the COC for 36 Priscilla Mullins Way. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass unanimous.
We do the minutes at the end? And then the new hearings?
Yeah, we should
Take them to the new-
go to
Going back to
our
you.
new hearings. So, okay. So this time, we're going to move to our new hearings.
Yes.
Which are Weather Vane at Patriot Pines on Silva Street. Notice is hereby given in accordance with Mass Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw, that a public hearing will be held at 7:15 PM on Wednesday, August 7th, but that's been continued to this date, in Meeting Room 1 at the Carver Town Hall to hear the request for determination of applicability filed by Weather Vane at Patriot Pines. Determine A, whether the area depicted on the plans and/or maps referenced below is an area subject to the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act, and D, whether the area and/or work depicted on reference plans is subject to the jurisdiction of any municipal wetlands ordinance or bylaw of the town of Carver. RDA is to determine whether the isolated depressions created by the sand and gravel operation on the site are subject to jurisdiction under the regulations and/or bylaw. The project is located off Silva Street, Carver, Mass., map 67, lots 4-3 and 4-F. All interested parties are invited to attend.
It's a mouthful.
Good evening. My name is John Zimmer with South River Environmental, here on behalf of Patriot Pines. What we have is about a 9-acre parcel that's located approximately a quarter mile east on Silver Street from Route 58, and it's located south of Silver Street. There's an existing electric transmission easement that basically bisects the property. It's historically been used for sand and gravel removal. I provided pictures dating back to, I think, 2016 that showed it being active right up through until last year. There are provisions under the Wetlands Protection Act with respect to ponds, that if it's an active gravel operation, that it needs to be 5 years before the area becomes jurisdictional. The area in the southeastern side of the site, as often happens, do you need a copy? You good?
I'll pass it down.
That's
Just
good.
give me 1 second, Jim.
Oh,
I might have
we're
another.
not
I have
supposed to be
one.
looking.
You have another one?
Yep.
Lucky you, we got another one. None for you. I just want to see where it was on silver.
Have you been?
This is 58?
Yes, I guess it is.
Yeah.
And this would be the third
what
road
you
coming
want.
in. Here's the, somewhere in there's the...
You said it's off of 58, on the 58 end of Silver Street, so if you come from here and you go down 58, you make the right onto Silver?
Right, it's about
Right for the
probably less than a quarter mile on the right where the electric transmission lines come across.
Yeah, and it's right next to the entrance to the town beach, right?
So
Here,
he's saying
very close to the
Yeah.
Johns Pond Beach, yes.
Yeah.
he's
But it's
saying
across the street.
by,
Yeah.
excavation.
Yeah, I got you.
And
So Savory and Dan and I went this morning. Looked at it, and I was out there with John yesterday.
And you agree?
Right, so as often occurs with these sand and gravel operations, they dig until they hit water and then they leave.
Right.
So it's been, about a year since they stopped active excavation out there, and what's starting to come back are a few wetland plants and things, but since we're in that 5-year period, before it actually becomes jurisdictional, the applicant wanted to get a formal determination because they're looking at acquiring the property and, maybe redeveloping it in the future. And you can see for the folks who went out there today, it's pretty clear the elevation change from the normal
Yes.
elevation on either side. They basically just dug on down. There are 2 other areas in the western side, kind of smaller ponded areas. These areas, I think the larger of the 2 has been there longer, but it's still been actively worked. You can see where they've gone right down into the pond, and you can see on the aerials where there's been changes to the shape and things over the past several years.
And this is similar to the ones we had on Park Ave, Jim, at the
Yeah.
Whitworth property. Remember those isolated
Right.
areas
So we're
that were
talking this
created for
here.
the sand and gravel operation?
Would you say Savory and Tomo's?
Savory and Dan.
Savory and
It's a high
Dan.
tension wire. There's the.
To hear from
that's
Dan,
one right
see
there.
what he thinks. What did you think of that?
John, this, looking at the
Sure that
picture here,
was
this is Silver Street running across the top there?
Correct.
Right, and this is 58th in there?
Yes, 58's coming down, if you're looking at with Silver Street at the top, 58's down in
Good enough.
the left corner of the
No,
page.
it's not 58.
It's not 58.
58's over
It's
here.
excavation.
58's over there.
Okay.
It's three feet deep,
Fine.
maybe 4.
Okay.
That must be John's Pond
Sorry I
Road.
didn't get out there.
It's right near
Okay.
Johns Pond Road.
Okay,
That's
okay.
John's Pond Road.
Okay,
This is
yes.
Silver Street over here.
Now, Johns Pond Road doesn't have that many houses on it
Comes
there.
down and what's the street on the far right of that picture? Is that John? That's not John's Pond, is it?
I'm not sure which street that is.
Johns Pond is on the opposite side, I think, isn't it?
That'd be across the street, that's right.
I'll tell you in a second.
What street is that?
I'll tell you in a second.
So this is 58,
You sure that's
so you
58?
come in 58, make the right on Silver. So
That's
that-
Jill Marie Drive.
Jill Marie.
Joe Marie, okay. Okay,
It's a loop.
right, okay. And that's with that, that's in that little development,
Yep.
Yes.
okay.
What do they call
You
it?
guys-
Water
you guys-
view?
You
Right.
guys went to see it, right?
Yes.
So what did you think?
It was holes that were dug with
It's
with heavy
obvious,
equipment
yeah.
that had filled in with water, or the water table has come up to fill
Right.
them in. I don't think that's runoff. I think it looked more like water table. The one that this gentleman said was the older of them was really only about 4 feet deep in the center. It looked, I mean, you could see the bottom from the edge.
Yeah.
So, as he said, they dug till they hit water and stopped.
Now,
Mining it within this 5-year period, then
how old do you think that, how old do you
Right,
think that
right.
section is, the 4
What'd you
foot
think,
deep
Dan?
section?
The rocks around it were still piled high, so it was, erosion
Now
hadn't.
that's,
They hadn't gone in at all?
No.
Okay, all right.
does the name Van Johnson come into, is it not Van Johnson?
Yeah, where is his pub? That, you and I looked at that, but I think that was down farther.
No, this is the guy who was working on the property. Earth Removal was very familiar with this. This is the, he was digging that pond to create a farm area down there. Okay, now I'm beginning to,
So I think
place
it's
it,
that
yeah.
place, I think that's different. Was that the different site?
yeah. No, this,
Oh,
this is the south side of Silva Street. And it's behind the houses that right are at the beginning of Silva, or on 58, from the beginning of Silva there.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
I'd be surprised if there was any consideration of farming there, knowing what the site is like now.
It was mostly an excuse probably to remove sand and gravel.
oh, they came to earth removal for that?
Yeah.
Yes,
there's one.
yes.
All the
Oh,
money's in
okay.
the
Have these guys always owned it?
Got it.
And these are the-
No,
see the
no,
arrow?
I mean,
They recently
Yep.
acquired it?
yeah, they're just looking to acquire it now, so.
So you're just looking for an okay, or
A negative determination?
you want to hear what Dan has to say?
I don't really have an opinion on it just yet, only because I'm not really sure what type of development they're talking about.
Yeah, maybe we're, with Dan in mind, we should also go out and take a fresh look at it now that we know kind of what the interest in it is.
Well, we looked at it today.
We looked at it
Oh,
today.
you looked at it
Oh, we
today?
did?
Okay.
Yeah, Dan,
Yeah.
Savory and I did.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, and I looked
I'm
at it
sorry.
with John.
I mean,
And it's very obvious, you know, that they were it was part of the sand and gravel operation.
Right,
And
right.
so what happens if they've been mining it within that 5 years, it's not a jurisdictional wetland, in other words, unless it's way
Right.
after the 5 years. So they're really, it's like those ones on Park Ave that were
Right.
created from the sand and gravel operation, yeah.
Right, so by giving a negative determination, they can fill it
That's
in
what you
tomorrow.
want.
Yes.
I mean, I will say the area to the west, obviously there was obvious recent activity. The area to the east,
They got 5 years.
Right, if you look at the aerials, you can see
Yeah.
pretty clearly that that the area's been worked within the last year
Sure.
to 2 years.
the area to the east as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's on those.
He dug so heavily into that area that he uncovered the ground wire connecting the transmission towers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and had to be,
We looked at these two.
had to be cautioned that
Yeah, right.
not a thing to play with.
2018. That's 2017.
So we're just discussing.
Is anybody
not
here
for-
interested in this
No, we
case?
aren't.
We are, okay.
But
it's not.
if it hasn't been there
Make a motion to close the hearing.
Okay,
so there's 15.
yes.
Dave, are you okay with a motion to close the hearing now?
It's there, here, it's starting to fill in a bit.
Gotcha. Okay.
Motion to close the hearing for Patriot Pines, Silver Street?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to close the hearing for the Patriot Pines at Silva Street. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's passed unanimous.
You want to make the motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion that we arrive at a negative determination for the RDA for weather vane at Patriot Pines, Silver Street.
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to find a negative determination for the RDA for Patriot Pines at Silva Street. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That's passed unanimous. Awesome.
Thank you,
Thanks very
John.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to sign over here.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, yeah.
No, I can't do that. It's always the chair. You got to be respectful.
You do?
Always respectful. The chair always gets the
Since
top
when?
left.
I haven't seen you since this morning.
Give me back my plan. Give me back my
Which
request.
plan? This one, the Silva Street?
Oh, do you want that one? Oh, I'll just
Sign
take
all
this
my
one, at least I have
paperwork.
one.
I sign all my paperwork for conservation with a crayon.
My car.
I waited
And
for the
doesn't
rain.
need what?
Where's the other plan on? See,
Well, you're always open.
Here we go with she's gonna be looking for an
the other
okey-dokey
plan
now,
on that.
too.
Is Dan looking
Too
at it?
late,
Only
she's
one
already filed.
okey-dokey a night.
She's already filed, so she doesn't have an okey dokey.
Oh, the plan. We need the plan.
Yep, coming.
Good enough.
There you go, Jim.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Okay, and here's the,
You
No
sign,
wonder.
right, yeah.
Brooke. It's all set.
Okay.
The property.
This is, the guy that was digging this out is the one who was giving us trouble with not stopping digging off of 42 Fuller Street.
Oh, yeah,
Back
yeah.
behind the houses there, and so on and so
Oh,
forth.
when the solar thing in 42 foot?
No, this is back behind the houses. They were doing sand and gravel removal. And they removed so much that there's a main power line running through there, and the support pile earth for the poles
Yeah.
was just up to a narrow cone. The poles were almost being carried
Falling
by the
over.
wires.
Like, why would he do that? It's kind of an odd thing.
And the guy was operating all times, night and day, whenever he wanted to. Okay, so what do we have? Next is Renewable Energy Partners, LLC-O, Rear Pond Street. Okay. And notice here are given in accordance with the provisions of the Mass Wetland Protection Act and Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw that a public hearing will be held at 7:15 p.m. on Wednesday, August 21st, 2019, in Meeting Room 1, Carver Town Hall, to hear the notice of intent submitted by Renewable Energy Development Partners, LLC, for the construction of a plus or minus 1.4 megawatt dual-use ground-mounted solar array and a plus or minus 2.5 megawatt agricultural canal canopy. Subsurface utilities, support structures, and selective tree clearing are proposed within the bank associated with an agricultural canal, the 100-foot buffer zone, the locally jurisdictional 100-foot buffer zone to BLSF, and the 65-foot no-build zone to the BVW, the IVW, the bank, and the BLSF, for which a variance from the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw is requested. This filing is submitted in accordance with the Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and Associated Regulations 310, CMR 10, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw. The project consists of a solar energy facility that includes an innovative agricultural canal solar canopy and a dual-use ground-mounted array located on a portion of the Swan Hole Bog Complex owned by A.D. Makepeace Company, known as Carver Assessor's Map 107, Lot 1-4, off of Pond Street in Carver, Mass. All interested parties are invited to attend. A copy of the plan is on file at the Planning Department. May be reviewed during normal business hours. And
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, everyone. For the record, Sarah Stearns from Beals and Thomas, and with me from Renewable Energy Development Partners is Hank Wimet and Tom Mellahan. Thank you to those of you who could visit the site with us earlier today. I think it was very helpful for you to be able to see the site. Jim, that was a very elaborate introduction, so you kind of touched on everything that I was going to talk about, so thank you for doing that.
it's all stated.
What's that?
That was just the ad.
I know, it was very,
All part of the
very
services
informative.
we offer here at the Carver Conservation
Yeah.
Commission.
I know. So thank you for that. This is a large property, almost 570 acres, owned by A.D. Makepeace Company, located off of Pond Street and Wenham Road. Those are the kind of two main access points. Yeah, there are a number of 11 by 17 plan sets. The plan sets are quite thick because of the layout of the site. If you want to turn your attention to sheet C101, the first 15 pages or so are the existing conditions plans, and then we get into the design plans.
It could be a test later on this, huh?
Do you need more plans? Dan, do you need a plan?
Do we have another set?
I have another set.
Hank's got an extra.
That'd be awesome.
I had one I did.
You can have
I have a
mine.
big one, but
It's
Big ones
really,
are too big.
there's so many sheets. So because this is primarily a linear
26
project, it's really
pounds.
hard to reduce the number of sheets. There's a little bit on each one, so.
No, that's good.
We
Thank
did
you.
our best, but the 11 by 17s are great. It makes it a lot easier while you're sitting at the table.
Dan, are you out in the cold here?
No, I'm good. I'm got my head around it.
Yeah,
Yep.
we were there
Yeah.
today, walked the whole thing.
Spent a lot of time
Super
out there.
nice.
Oh, good.
I know what's going on.
So sheet C101 is the aerial photo behind me. It just shows the property line essentially, but you can see it's a very large property, predominantly existing operational cranberry bogs, and a large or very long bypass canal associated with the bogs, which is just a way to convey the irrigation water, the water supply from one end to the other. It's in addition to the water that's sent through the bogs themselves, but it's the main conveyance. So this project is really kind of two parts. One, the proposed solar canopy over the bypass canal. And we talked a little bit about that earlier today, but if you want to turn to sheet C202, there's an overview sheet that shows the proposed project. I'll flip this.
See what?
C202.
202. So that's the whole project. Everything in yellow, red and green represents the canopy panels proposed above the bypass canal. So you can see just from this exhibit that the canal is quite long. The different colors represent different sizes based on the width of the canal. So it's not a perfectly straight and uniform canal like most of our ditches and such in Carver. So the panels have been sized appropriately based on primarily the width of the canal in those places. So for the most part, the idea is to have posts on either side of the canal bank with what we call the tables on top. They would be a fixed panel. And later on in the plan set, what page are the photographs on the very last page? The very last page of the plan set shows some photographic renderings to give you an idea of what it would actually look like. So it's just sort of a single row above the canal itself with the posts on either side of the bank. So this allows the cranberry use to continue. The roads would stay open and available to farming operations. The height of the panel has been designed in keeping with the agricultural operations, so there's access to the ditch beneath. Sunlight is able to penetrate between and around the panels to the water surface below. It was flowing today, and this time of year is obviously the lowest flow. It was flowing today pretty well, actually, given the amount of rain that we've had throughout the season, but typically it's pretty dry this time of year. But it did have some flow today. It was a foot or two deep in most places, which is, I guess, unusual for this time of year. But it's fully managed. Right. So this, I mean, it's manipulated by Makepeace as needed for the cranberry operation. And the canal was constructed for this very specific use. So it's a human-made canal and operated every day. It would the use of the canal would not change as part of this project. And this is really just kind of a creative solution to creating renewable energy on an area that's being used for agricultural purposes in an open area. So the benefit of this type of design is that tree clearing is kept to the bare minimum. There are a couple of areas, and you'll see on the sheets in the plan set, where some selective tree clearing is proposed at the edge where it's close to the existing tree line. But other than that, it's a very straightforward installation. And Hank and Tom can talk a little bit more about the different types of post installations that they're considering for this. It hadn't been decided at the time of filing, and they're still looking at different options. But for the purposes of filing the NOI with the commission, we've assumed the most conservative approach in terms of calculating impacts to resource areas, which in this case is the edge of the bank in a few areas where the ag road is pretty tight to the canal. We wanted to make sure that space was available for access, and other things like that came up in unique scenarios with different portions of the canal. But, so we assumed the most conservative approach for that, but no work is proposed in the stream bottom. Very little is proposed in the bank, other than a couple of select areas. And otherwise, it's work within the buffer zone to an agricultural use, whether it's the bog or the canal itself. And that's really the subject of the filing as far as this piece of the project. Do you want to add anything else about the canopy? The posts? Yeah, I think the post is a good thing to touch on.
Sure. Good evening, members of the board. Hank, we met with Renewable Energy Development Partners. So as Sarah alluded to, these, we like to describe these canopies individually as tables. There's a series of tables that make up, it's over a mile of canal linearly that we're covering. The tables themselves are roughly 40 feet long, and they vary between 24 to 31 feet wide to accommodate the different widths of the canal as it exists today. And those tables are each supported on 4 columns. And so a pair of columns on either side of the canal. And the column spacing is roughly 24 feet along the canal. So there's a 24-foot bay between each table, essentially.
How high off the ground?
So we've designed it to have a simple shed roof type slope, so a 1/12, 1.5/12 slope. And the high side will vary based on the orientation of the canal so that we're maximizing the angle of the shed towards the sun. Under the high side, we're designed 12 feet from grade to the bottom of the beam. And that, working with the landowner and the bog folks, that gives them plenty of room to get under.
Well, that would have tied into that was my next question, is how you're going to maintain the canal.
Right, and the landowner has frankly demucked a good chunk of the canals in the past few months in anticipation of this project. My understanding is that those canals get demucked very rarely, once every 15, 20 years. So this is providing them the ability to get in there, but their expectation is that they're not going to probably have to get in there maybe more than one more time during the life of the project. They can also, so, excuse me, to complete the thought, so on the high side, you've got 12 feet from the canal road to the bottom of the beam, the beam that supports the tables or the panels. And on the low side, it's roughly 8.5 feet on the other side of the canal. So on both sides, you're able to get equipment under there to mow the canal banks, which they currently do. These are maintained canal banks. As far as the support columns themselves, as Sarah alluded to, we have 2 separate designs that we're still working through in terms of constructability and cost efficiency. One is a driven steel pile, which would be a continuous pile driven into the ground, and then it'll extend all the way up to the beam. And those are W8 piles, so an 8-inch cross-section along the length of the canal. So the permanent impact would be 8 inches per column. Mm-hmm. The other design we're contemplating using are helical piles, which are screwed into the ground on a steel shaft, and then we would bolt a plate to the top of those piles, and then a column would bear on those plates. And in that case, the impact along the canal would actually be less, something on the order of 3 or 4 inches. So for the purposes of the filing, we assumed 8 inches with a driven pile. But we're frankly leaning towards the helical pile because of, we think construction-wise, it'll be easier to get them in.
And how many total?
So there are about 140 tables, there's about 550 columns total associated with the canopy project.
So 550, and you said 8 inches.
But, so to be clear, as we pointed out in the field today, the vast majority of those columns will be installed in the road, not in the bank.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we designed them specifically so that the column spacing was from top of road to top of road, not in the banks. However, due to some field constraints and the fact that we didn't want to have a custom designed for every single section of the canal. There are some cases where we expect to have to drive piles into the bank, and that's what we calculated our impact on. And we were conservative in that. I think we plan on like more than 100 of the piles, but as we've laid it out here, there's a lot less than 100 piles that would have to land in the bank. So we're quite comfortable living with the constraint of 100 feet total.
Right.
Was any consideration given to the fact that you're going to also probably be conserving water from evaporation?
No, Mr. Chair, we didn't. I mean, our understanding is that there's not a specific standard regarding both conservation or water temperature.
Yeah.
Just in discussion with our consultants, we think kind of intuitively there will be both benefits both to a water temperature,
Right.
Limiting the amount of heat gain in the canals during the summer, because the canals are shallow. So this will provide some direct shading. There'll be late afternoon and early morning sun. In some cases, on the east-west sections, there's hardly any shading projected over the canal. So we think it's at best, at worst case, would be neutral from a water temperature standpoint, and in the best case, it would help limit the increase of the water temperature. Right. And as far as evaporation, I think the same applies. There'll be less radiative cooling and and losses.
That's a good point, Jim.
Well, I'm familiar with a canal over in Israel that runs from the north end of the country down to the desert area in the Negev, and it's covered the whole of its length. And it's something, they figure it saves like 60% of the water that would be lost to evaporation.
Right. So we discussed this, Mr. Chair, thank you for reminding me of the background there. We discussed this in the field today. To be clear, one of the reasons we're doing this project is to, working with the landowner to reuse existing land that keeps that existing use in play and allows for the generation of renewable energy. But we didn't come up with the idea. I wish we could take credit for it. This is part of the state incentive, the current state solar incentive program. They have specifically carved out agricultural canals, canopies over agricultural canals as being eligible for the new program. And my understanding or my assumption is that some of the reasons that you're discussing are why they're encouraging that sort of development, because there are net benefits in other regards.
Well, glad to see it.
Thanks for that commentary. That's sort of the first part of the project. The second part involves a ground-mounted array, which we saw the area today, on the same property along the canal, in a wooded area adjacent to the bogs, and that is shown in blue on the plan, and that's the same sheet C202 that shows the overview. 2 sheets later shows kind of a more zoomed in, on 204, it shows a larger depiction of that ground-mounted component. So this is something that we're more used to seeing here in Carver.
Stop it.
Interestingly, this portion of the project is being designed as a dual-use project. So I know you're familiar with that, how those panels are laid out with additional space between them and at a higher level to allow farming and cultivation beneath and amongst the panels. So that's the plan for this component of it. Now, it is not proposed on a cranberry bog for dual use, but it would be another crop installed after the site work and grading is completed. But it would consist of single axis trackers at the required height and spacing and shading requirements under the SMART program for the dual use portion of that program. We did include on the plan, you'll see an improvement of an existing, just a gravel road there, but that what's shown here is more appropriate for emergency access and in concert with the fire department and emergency services. So this is a little bit more familiar to us. I know that we have all seen this type of layout before. The site work here, because it is wooded, so it would consist of a little bit more site work than the canal project, certainly. tree removal and grading. The material there is sand that would be used on site for the existing bog operations, used immediately or stored elsewhere on site. They have plenty of room to keep it until needed. Also shown are the infiltration basins for the stormwater management as well. That's what the grading is showed around there on the southern side of that. But it's, again, very little of it is actually even within the 100-foot buffer zone to the adjacent wetland, vegetated wetland, and also to the existing canal bank and active cranberry bog. So you can see the red and green lines, the 65-foot local buffer zone, 100-foot buffer zone depicted on this plan, and very little of it is proposed within that. And that's by design, trying to utilize as much of the upland area as possible. Do we know what the crop is proposed yet, or are we still discussing that?
No, there'll be similar to the Gate Street project, there'll be a farming plan that allows diversity over 25 years to allow crop rotations and management.
Which is a novel idea to cranberry growers, so no rotation allowed on a cranberry bog. So, yeah, so that's really the summary of the dual use component of the project. So two things going on here, all in the same project. 80 Makepeace will continue to own and operate the site as it is today. We've been working closely with the foreman and the landowner to make sure that this has been designed in compliance with not only regulatory statutes, but their agricultural operations plan, and make sure that all of their commentary has been factored into that. So the foreman joined us today and was able to answer some questions that the commission had in terms of their daily operations and what they would like to see come of this. So it's a team effort for sure, and a really very unique and creative use of a vast open area. We have, I think, successfully avoided and minimized impacts to wetland resource areas, and really portrayed that in the notice of intent filing. We did get a DEP file number. Did you get that email?
Yeah.
There was one comment from Southeast Region regarding wildlife habitat evaluation. So what we're reporting for, there's no rare wildlife or any kind of natural heritage mapping on this site, but in terms of habitat evaluation, we're reporting give or take 85 linear feet of impact to bank based on what Hank and I were just discussing with the posts. And again, that's a conservative estimate, but that triggers a simplified wildlife habitat review, and that is included in the application. So I'm comfortable with, being able to answer that comment. Brooke and I and some of the members that we spoke with today discussed that a little bit. So I think we're good on that. And no other wetland impacts by design. So I think that's pretty great.
You mentioned something about no rotation of trackers on cranberry bogs, but don't those ones on South Carver? They're going to rotate.
I just
right?
mean rotating the crop.
Oh, okay. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yes,
misunderstood.
these will be single-axis trackers, very similar to the other dual-use projects that we've discussed.
Yeah. Looks wonderful. So,
This is the public.
any other questions? Alan?
Is this all woodland now?
No, it's all bogs.
It's all but
This area where the solar's going,
Where the ground mounted is, it is wooded, yeah.
it's all trees?
Part of the hillside has been excavated over time for use of material. And there's, that where the road is now is cut in a bit, but the back part of it is wooded.
And that's also
You're gonna remove the trees, harvest the sand, which they can do anyway, and then
Possibly, yeah. It's
and then plant crops.
yeah.
Now, I still have I have issues with that 8 acres of being taken out, I really do.
That's-
And then if you add on the other areas that have to be cut back, I figure it's about 9 acres of woodlands we're gonna lose. trade-off for passive solar field.
But it's dual use.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand, well, it's kind of dual
Well, it
use.
has to be. If they're going for dual use, it has to
Right.
meet certain criteria
I understand
of
it.
producing.
What are they gonna plant underneath the passive
Well,
solar?
they're going to
on that hill?
rotate crops, is what they're talking about.
It's gone
They
out
won't-
there.
Yeah, what sort of an idea do they have for putting crops underneath this? I know the Gate Street one, there was talk about vegetable crops, right?
Yes, sir. Similar to Gate Street, we had prepared a farming plan that included shade-tolerant fruits and vegetables, landscaping stock, and forage grasses and legumes. So we expect to rotate those crops through. Part of this is to condition the soil. This is sandy soils, not the best for all the different agricultural uses we'd like. So hay fields initially, probably, just to build some soil nutrients.
Soybeans, maybe?
Soybeans, maybe.
Yeah.
Has the Gate Street project started, actually?
We expect to start construction in the next couple months.
Right. Looking forward to it.
Yes, so are we.
All right, I got a few things. You'd said the maximum height at the rear of the cross beam is about 12 feet. What is the maximum height of the entire unit with the panels attached?
I think it's about
back.
15, so the beam is a foot, 12 inches, and then the purlins that span the beams are 12 inches, so that's 2 feet. So that's, and then the panels. So the panels are setting at about 14 feet elevation at the high side.
Okay.
So
All right.
14 feet at the high side down to about 10 feet at the low side.
That's just normal.
This is for the canal canopy.
Right, yes, I get that. And the,
The single axis trackers, per the state's requirements, when the trackers are horizontal, they'll be 10 feet high.
okay.
And then they'll rotate around that.
What about the woodland area that you're taking out? What elevation will those be?
That's what I was referring to, sir.
Same thing?
Those are gonna tilt.
Those single axis trackers
I understand.
are 10 feet, will be 10 feet high.
Okay.
Is this the first solar canopy that you've done?
This is the first agricultural canal canopy, to our understanding, that anyone has done.
Okay.
This is just huge.
In the state of Massachusetts, at least, and we've spent a lot of time and resources and money on we've had the thing structurally designed. These are custom structures, as you can imagine. You can't walk down to a solar vendor and buy this. So we've hired structural engineers and geotechnical engineers to design it for this application, and we actually have several other projects where we're going to apply this same design.
All right. Well, that being said, I'm going to mention something again that I mentioned today on our site visit, and that is the change in water temperature between what it is now downstream for where you're going to put this and after the canopy's up and maybe, at the end of a season, of summer season. And, I obviously don't want you to go through any expense, but I think that perhaps if you can investigate like UMass Amherst, to give them something to look at, a project here, so that there is data moving forward, because you're the first, you're probably not going to be the last. And if this is very successful, it'd be nice to have this kind of data moving down the years, saying that this is the effect it's going to have on your water outflow. When it's not sun, it could be beneficial.
Study. Let them begin a study.
Yeah, just and I'm sure that that's something that a university would
Right.
love to jump into.
Right. We have been talking with folks at UMass, as you know, mostly via the Cape Cod Cranberry Growers Association. Everybody has been forming a tight circle in these communities that have a lot of cranberry bogs, and really coming up with ways to continue to monitor these new projects specific to cranberries. So, we can certainly speak with Brian Wick at CCCGA and talk to him about,
That's what I was thinking about.
yeah, talking to his contacts at UMass and, put a temperature gauge in a couple spots in the canal.
That's really all it's going to
And
take.
just collect the data for, and you just download it once a season type thing and look at it.
Right.
I mean, it's actually a pretty simple thing to be able to do. So, yeah, so I think that I'm personally interested in it
Yeah,
myself.
you said that today.
Yeah, I really am. So I would like to see that, and I think I'll speak on behalf of Hank and Tom, but we can certainly speak with Brian about that and get his input on it, and maybe talk to Hillary and some of the folks at UMass and see what they may suggest.
Yeah, I think it'd be good information to have
Yeah.
going forward,
Yeah, I agree.
just so other people would know.
Are there any butters from this project? I know it's pretty well known. Here we are. Do you folks have anything to say? Have you?
Couple of questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
How many acres are going to be covered with solar panels?
Sorry, respond. So,
Sir, could you sign in, please? And
Yeah.
we actually
For the
would
record.
just grab a chair and come up so you can hear you in the microphone.
happy to answer it while you're doing that.
Is there a way that we could look at the plans?
Sure.
Yeah.
Because you guys have all this.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
You guys come on over.
Are you folks in the Vaughan Estates for the most part?
Yeah, there's a full set there. Oh, I missed it. So to answer the gentleman's question, the canal canopy component, it's about 5,700 linear feet of canal that we'll be covering. We didn't calculate the acreage. The canal width varies. We're happy to go back and do that and provide it to the board if you want it. So, but it's a little over a mile of canals that we're covering.
3.9 acres.
And-
Almost 4 acres is what, and
And the panels that you put on the bottom would cover in the wooded area that you're going to...
yeah, just
The
to be
wooded area
clear,
is another eight, the wooded area is another 8 acres, not including the trim work they have to do around the side.
But it's not 8 acres of solar panels.
no, you're
It's
correct.
over an 8-acre area.
It's seven and a half acres of 7.5 acres of
You
clearing.
can clear it with or without us,
And then-
Tim.
And
It's
then
upland.
about
You don't need us to
6
clear it.
acres of actual
It's upland.
array footprint. But
out of our
obviously,
purview.
there's
They can
spacing
strip the
between,
whole
you
thing.
Yeah,
can
and it's
see it in
not
the
only
design,
that,
there's
it's
spacing
cranberry-
between each row.
Yeah, you can be concerned.
Cranberry Bog, and they have the right to do almost
They can do
anything.
whatever they want.
No, they can, but...
We don't need to be concerned because
Okay, wait
it's
a
none of
minute.
our concern.
Excuse me, the gentleman's trying to talk to us here.
Cutting
I
trees,
think the butters are
solar panels in.
disadvantaged
I think
because
it's horrible.
you had a site meeting with the folks making this proposal that we weren't aware of, we don't have that information.
Well, you're having it now, sir.
So you have
best
a
we can
public
do.
meeting, but that's private property, and they have the right to whether they invite you or not. That is private property, and unless they,
Seeking a variance, isn't that what resulted in the letter that invited us
Well,
to this meeting?
the drawings will show you exactly the area and everything else you want to look at, sir. That includes the 8 acres. If you look on the map, it'll show you exactly the 8 acres that they're cutting down, along with all the trim work. You could probably pick out on the drawing exactly where you live, because they've got
He needs to
everybody.
understand.
If you look on there,
It's because he got another notification that he was gonna be asked to come to the
Valor,
site.
Valor.
But the butters
Sound
never
asleep.
asked the site.
Hank, do you want to use the large plan and maybe talk to the group at large?
Over here.
No,
I'd help that lady out over there.
ask permission.
Right.
This hasn't been a planning yet? As long as this gentleman
I need
has
to look at a larger
This is only for a variance in the 65 and a very small percentage of this project.
Not only that,
His biggest avenue would be the planning board.
Right.
This hasn't been to planning yet.
and even, no, actually, this is really between, this is agricultural activity. It's, there's absolutely no reason for planning even to be involved. This is an agricultural
Well, planning will
activity.
get involved in it
Planning,
because it's a
that's-
solar project.
They get to give it a kiss, but
Probably
this-
for the visual stuff, you know.
Yeah. Setbacks and the shielding and all that nonsense. Yeah, I know. It would be helpful for this gentleman to understand that
She's not on one of the sheets.
no savory will
And so it's gonna go
turn him.
yeah. So we don't
See this bog? You go across the bog.
You haven't been to planning yet?
Excuse me?
You're just going to
You haven't
planning
been to
still?
planning.
It has not been
But it's
in front
going?
of planning yet. Oh, we're going. Yes.
So these
Nobody can
people
hang
will
on
be
to a
invited.
pen tonight.
Of course, yes. So I don't know if you want to bring it back to the public, Mr. Chairman, or just, are you happy to have the
Let's wait
side
till we-
conversations?
Just
Okay.
You can have their
Give a little
little,
while.
rid of their clutch.
Let me look at the
C207.
correct sheet. No, the clearing is shown on the
lives
But I
separate.
think it's important, Sarah,
Yeah.
I think it's important that everybody understand that you don't need our involvement for cutting those trees down.
Correct.
That's out of our purview, it's upland area, it's
Oh, absolutely, there's no
agricultural, you can
doubt
do
about it,
whatever
but
you want.
I'm talking about the trees we do have involvement with on the edge of the bogs that just these people are interested in looking
That are
at.
within a couple of feet of the,
Go
is
to
that what you're talking about?
It's selected, yeah, for shading of the
Oh,
bugs.
Jesus Christ.
The other one.
I know, there's so many sheets.
They don't have that right either. That's an agricultural activity.
Yeah, I don't think they
If
do
it's for the
either.
shading of the bugs, we've allowed.
Just to keep her quiet.
They do that all the time.
Shouldn't say it that way. Yeah,
So the hatched area is where,
Multi-million-dollar project.
she lives right here.
No, we're not going to.
I don't know if that's her. She wasn't shown on the
Right
other
there.
plan.
Economy of effort for,
Just,
That's right.
man,
just for economy of effort for some of these
Okay, no,
meetings
that's not-
with some of these subjects. As you mentioned, what's under our purview and what's not.
what's that?
I think our personal feelings about, how many deciduous trees versus,
right
pine,
here,
are taken
She's not
down.
on the
And
thing.
it's really not our
It's
place.
not Jim Walsh said.
Yeah.
He said, because he heard Tim talking. So he said,
It's in that vicinity.
She's not even on the plan at all.
he really doesn't have anything to say about it.
Yes.
Kennedy.
For me, if for me, if somebody acres
No,
of
it's
land
a little
for it,
bit
I'd love to
further
see
down.
it.
It's off.
I'd
It's
love to
off.
see
Yeah,
it.
it's down.
Okay, all
Great
right.
post put up for habitat, but that's nothing to do with anything.
Hey, you know, it's not
Some of the
end
cranberry
day,
birds might like that idea too. That would cut down on their pest problems.
Can we reel this back together?
Okay.
Enough.
Are things, let's see if we get a little more yardage.
Thank you, Tim.
Hi, Savory, how is it coming with the discussion? Is it pretty well concluded?
What's the?
Don't mind, don't mind.
No, I don't.
Who's your dad?
The steel?
This whole
There's no
solar
way.
thing is gonna go
I mean-
away in a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, there have been studies on that. I mean, we haven't done them for this particular project, but.
It's just too big.
Oh, no. I don't think so. I think they're going to be,
Unless they upgrade them.
Alan, I think they're going to be building new transmission lines. They're going to have to.
Hey, Val?
Scientific.
All the way. Get underneath.
It's, and I think the
Particularly by steel.
Eversource is going to be mandated to it, just like the boys.
We're poised, and I was never saying, we're poised to take advantage of solar, the same way some of these towns are.
Yes.
In this
Right. And to have people be able to continue living here.
That's the biggest thing that we're taking up in the FinCom is we've got two groups. We've got the kids that are moving out and us that can't afford to stay here.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. I think it's too much impedance.
7,700 my taxes are up to.
The golf course?
For personal opinion.
It's staunch. I know. I mean, looking back at what we started off with and when we bought the house in '82. Amazing.
And I'm willing to bet money that if you'd had a mortgage on that house in '82, your taxes are higher than your mortgage ever was.
Something, I mean, we should counter the environmental.
I paid off the mortgage in '93 or '94 because I went through 5 different banks as they went broke and got bought out and so on and so forth. They kept getting screwed up. Oh, you owe another payment. We sorry, no, we lost that payment.
Continuous canopy all the way around like that?
Yeah. Bank down in Tennessee, transferred to a bank in St. Louis.
And my son had a bank out in California that went under.
Yeah.
And somebody bought them. Total disaster.
It's 150 acre park. Those trees in that area are going down at some point in the next 10 years.
All right, let's get this under control.
Okay, I'd like to return to the meeting.
Back to order.
Yeah.
Be nice, huh?
Shall we
Get
get
that
out?
hammer out.
Where's that hammer? That hammer's
Last time you
disappeared.
used it on me. Where'd the hammer go?
Somebody swallowed it.
No.
Okay, I'd like to return to normal business, please. I'd like to say that a number of the questions that are being raised are probably really related to agricultural questions, and those could be answered by either the Agricultural Commission or the Cranberry Growers Association, and so on. There is a wide latitude of activity that is allowed by the agricultural regulations for people owning land in agriculture. So it's really, it's not something the town judges.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
It's upland.
If I may, I always appreciate when neighbors come to these hearings because I think it is really valuable for abutters to have an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant and the board and to be heard. So, we always try to make ourselves available during the public process and beyond for questions. We're happy to answer questions from the neighbors and give good information, and rather it come from us than from someone down the street or around town or Facebook. So, we really do encourage that. I would also like to point out to the abutters that there will be a planning board process for this project upcoming, so which incorporates a broader range of topics and purview. So this commission is really quite limited to the Wetlands Protection Act and the local wetlands bylaw and in those issues that pertain directly to that. But at the planning board, the conversation will be a bit more broad, and you will certainly be notified again about that meeting when that happens, and have another opportunity to come to that board and ask questions of us, of the board, a peer reviewer if there is one. So there will be a lot to discuss, certainly, and more opportunity to have those conversations. But thank you for coming.
The planning board will have the power to require screening of the solar panels so that they don't interfere with the enjoyment of the people living on the edge of this property toward the bog. However, I think, though, that Makepeace already has the screening set up for its property, so I don't really believe that you would have too much problem with it. However,
Pretty well
that'd be the question to be raised when you do get the notice of those hearings. So, okay. Does the board have any other questions?
I'm good. Motion to close the hearing?
I just had a quick
Yes, go
quick
ahead.
question. You had mentioned some paperwork was submitted regarding habitat.
Yes.
If you could
got a
just
DEP number.
give me a quick 30-second expansion on that.
Yeah,
Great.
it's a process governed by the Wetlands Protection Act
Yes,
when
and
you
126.
exceed certain thresholds. While we are still meeting the performance standards for the resource areas in question, in this case it's bank, of a human-made canal used for agricultural purposes, of course, but still taking the conservative approach, we wanted to make sure that we captured any potential impact. So along with the threshold for work in a bank, if you go over a certain linear footage of impact, you are required to do what's called a simplified wildlife habitat evaluation. And it is a fairly simple exercise in documenting if there's any unique environments out there for various type of wildlife. So in this case, this is a very common type area to our community. So we were able to submit that form as part of the notice of intent and adhere to that level of evaluation. So we are in compliance with that section of the regulations and have documented that we've taken a look at the site for those very particular habitat.
And you had mentioned that piece is attached to the NOI?
Yes, it is it's in the section of the DEP Transact forms at the back of that.
Okay.
It's either called a simplified evaluation or Appendix A, sometimes
Just
it's
the one
referred to.
form, the
It's
one
just
page.
one sheet. It is simple, it's simplified, and it just documents various criteria around the site.
Great.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for asking that.
Good.
Okay, so, shall we
Close the hearing.
close the hearing? Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we close the hearing for Energy Partners LLC, 0 Rear Pond Street, DEP SC 126-587.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to close the hearing for Renewable Energy Partners, as previously announced. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Do we have that DEP number here? It's not on the
So it's SC
Yeah, we
126-587.
just got
126-587?
587, yep.
Okay, thank you. So, a motion to accept this as a, for a notice?
Yeah, motion to approve the NOI for Renewable Energy Partners LLC, 0 Rear Pond Street, DEP SE 126-587, as drawn and shown in this encyclopedia that we have.
Okay. Second on that, gentlemen?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to adopt the request for determination?
No, order conditions.
Order of conditions, okay. On, for DEP SE 126-587. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so we have 410.
I would like to make a comment, if I may.
Yes?
We didn't have a chance to make a comment on this, and I'd like to make this comment. This array that's covering all the canal all the way around has no openings. It has a canopy over the top continually with no openings. At this point, we don't know what the effect on the environment's going to be underneath that. We just don't know. And I think a study should be made on that before we even consider doing something like this. We have no idea what's going on there with the animals and everything that live underneath there. We have no idea at all. There's no sun underneath there, and yet we're saying okay. That's still water and it's still wetlands.
Tim, I understand your feeling on this. However, we have over 5.5 years of study done on the paddock bog with very similar situation. Canopy over cranberry bogs and over canals and so on and so forth. And there hasn't been any deleterious effects found, and that's why DEP finally did accept those.
Cranberry bogs are completely different from what they're doing here. This is the first canal job that they've come up with, the very first one. And we're approving it without the right information yet. That's all I have to say about it. So that's why my vote is no.
Okay. I'm sure that DEP, if they find a problem, they will come back to us with this.
They're not going to tell us if there's a problem.
Yes, they are. If they don't agree with our findings,
They're
they'll
gonna
come
stop
back.
Everything, yeah, all right.
Okay. So, that's settled.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, you just want to stay there and do the next one?
I think somebody else is up.
No.
Well, there's
It's you?
19 South Main.
We don't know what effect that's going to
At least once a week, I drive up Gate Street. I'm looking, so. Okay.
I took the
Do
liberty
you
of
want to keep
signing.
that for your own? You usually do.
I do, yeah.
You use it as a file of solar.
I'm,
I want to look at that.
okay.
Take that home, I'll bring that back.
The plans? Okay, this is the only small one.
never
I got
mind.
like a big one.
Never mind, that's all right, no.
Well, yeah, but you don't have to build it there in the backyard. No.
Tim's had a
Okay.
stroke over it. If you're going for coffee, I'll have a medium, or no? Sorry. Thought I'd ask.
We have one more thing, yes, it's on the agenda, but I have to just say that they asked for.
You know what I'm saying, right?
They've asked for continuance?
Okay,
And what gets me is we just can't for our discussion.
so we're at,
Okay, but we just have to say that's continued.
There was no
Poor
vote,
guy
there
still
was no
sitting here and
discussion
we-
here. There should have been a discussion before we went to the
I
vote.
mean, well, I told him it was continued.
So they are back up.
These guys are, yeah.
This
That's
is continued.
further, but that's continued. That's in the NRED.
is this 19 South Main Street?
19 South Main
It's
Street.
continued.
Requested a continuance because the consultant that we hired to review the wetland line couldn't review the wetland line because he couldn't find the flags. Oh, well, now is that common for this time of
So
year?
you're not on break.
I have, I had the project like that. I could not find one flag.
We need a motion
Couldn't
to
find the
approve
flags.
this.
Anyone couldn't find the
No,
site.
couldn't find the wetland flags.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because it's so
thick. Yeah, that's tough.
Terrible. So we're looking at Nexon Energy Solar off Rochester Road, correct?
Do we
Yes,
need,
yes.
a-
So,
we need
yeah.
a motion to continue this?
This is continuous. No, it has been continued, so we're just reopening.
Yeah. So if you remember this one, the only reason that we continued it last time was for the file number.
Yes.
Pretty
This
much.
is next on,
And then you have some minor changes to the plans, right?
what'd you do?
Good evening.
Good
It's okay.
evening.
It's not-
You're
State
not
your
taking
name for
away
the
another
record, please.
For the
vernal pool,
record,
are you?
Sarah Stearns with Beals and Thomas. With me is Adam Schumacher from Nexon Energy. We had continued this hearing quite a while ago, but had a site visit, chatted on site, went through the proposed dual-use project amongst the 3 properties owned by the Shores, the Perrys, and the Wanios here. And it is very similar to what we discussed on Tremont Street in terms of the minor changes that have been made since we last spoke in separating the inverter and battery storage pad from one centralized location to 3 separate to serve more efficiently the 3 kind of lobes of the dual-use array. Was that the only change? I think.
And we added in some additional harvest areas.
Oh, yes, yes. Again, similar to the other project that we recently discussed, after speaking with the landowners, wanted to ensure that panel placement wasn't going to impede areas that,
Trucks would be moving in, so.
yes, exactly, areas that are cordoned off for harvest activities.
Right.
So we want to make sure that this layout coincides properly with the agricultural operation, allows that to continue as seamlessly as possible. So very similar, we just sort of shaded off different areas amongst the areas on the bogs as discussed with the landowners that give them the best access for loading, et cetera.
Where are the inverters going now?
The plans I just gave Brooke shows them.
That's a revised one.
Okay. Because they were all going to be there, right, southwest corner.
Yes.
Okay.
So we
Should be an
added,
indication in there.
An additional location right here.
Okay.
And then there's one additional location right here.
Dan, do you want to set?
Okay.
So that's really the only change?
Yes, and adding, we increased
So we're adding
setbacks
locations
between homes and increased some area for harvesting.
swamps
So
in there?
remember, and Mr. Badger asked at our last hearing if we needed to do the same thing, and so I went back and double checked after that.
There's
Sure
more.
enough, it, for the same reasons as on Tremont Street, it does make sense to split off
No, that's
the
storage.
Oh.
from just a single location down here for the same voltage drop issue that we had on Tremont Street.
Yeah.
Because it's split up, does that decrease their individual footprint?
Yes, yeah, I mean, collectively, it's the same amount of
Right.
equipment, but in each individual spot, it's smaller than the whole.
Could you refer to the pages where the inverters are located on the drawings, please?
Or these,
Where's he breaking it down?
Once again, a
She
lot of
knows the
sheets.
drawings a heck of a lot better than we do.
So typically, just so as you're looking through them, we tend to have the existing condition sheets up front and then the design sheets behind. So anything that says TP means topographic
Okay.
in our agriculture.
We want the design.
Right, so these are, I mean, and these sites are large, so there's a lot of them. So, this is the overview sheet here. This shows the areas cordoned off for harvest.
What one are you on, sir? Trying to follow
TP1,
along.
she's looking, no, 2.
Okay, so this is the Shores property.
Okay.
With
Yep.
the battery and
All right.
located here.
Okay, got it.
This is the Perry property,
Okay.
same, where Adam pointed out on the largest.
So they're separating it
And this
all
is
out
where it
now.
was
And
to
this is
begin
the
with.
layout.
That's where it started. Yep.
So they're separating it all out, so each person
Correct.
has their own rather than mutual one.
Okay.
And that was
Great.
really done for technical purposes, efficiency purposes.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
So that and they
Yeah.
get their own inverters.
C31, C32.
Thank
We
you.
already approved this project, all we're doing is just letting them have 3 inverters.
All right.
Yes, that's right, finessing that, yeah.
I'm good. Any butters?
I've had enough
Nope.
time sleeping to blow.
What do you want for a motion? Or do you?
We have to close the hearing, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion that we close the hearing on Next Sun Energy Solar off Rochester Road, DEP SE 126-586.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to close the hearing on Next Sun Energy's Solar DEP SE 126-586. All those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Pass unanimous.
I'll make the motion that we approve the NOI changes for Nexon Energy Solar off Rochester Road, DEP SE 126-586, as drawn in the revised plans.
Revised encyclopedia.
Yeah, revised plans, I guess this would be the, not June 12th, is that the 8/21/19? 8/21/19 plan? August 21/19.
I'll second that.
See, moved and seconded to approve the changes in the plan for the NOI for SE 126-586. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Also unanimous.
Mary Ann, note that it says in process 8/21/19. That would be the date of that revision, so that we have that, okay?
In progress.
No, just so, yeah, as long as it's dated August 21, that's fine.
So I just need to change it in the order, but you can still sign that.
You gotta change it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
2 okey dokies in one night, you're doing all right.
Where's Edwards, Colorado?
You want us to initial?
It's near.
I would call it 1 3/4.
Airvale.
Handwritten?
Okay.
Just past
should.
Vale.
The only reason to do is because that's the only.
The entire board should.
Oh, okay.
So it's
I'll
it's
ask the chair.
a smaller town, a
This
nice
is
place.
interesting.
A nice place to be if you enjoy skiing, which the president of the company does.
The Frank Pan River still in?
You know, that's a good. I'm actually. I've always been remote.
That's down, yeah, that's below Aspen. You go past it and, okay.
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay.
Very familiar with the geography, but yeah, a lot of beautiful rivers in that area for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Sarah.
Look at changing the date. My suggestion is that all the board members initial the change.
Okay.
Or at least the chairman.
Yeah.
initial the change.
Okay.
'Cause
Yeah,
then we have a
I wasn't-
handwritten change.
I wasn't sure when we were going to approve it, so I had the old,
Yeah, and then you gotta
issuance
sign
date
the
on
other
it.
one.
Right.
But
I'd like to have us all initial the date change, just so that there's no issue coming back to us.
Of issuance, right.
because it does get reopened. It's the date that-
You know, it's a big deal because it's a handwriting over a typed document.
Right.
The argument can be made, well, when did you write this?
Because we always had to do it.
Did you write it
And it
after
is a
they
big
signed
deal
it?
if it gets appealed.
Sure.
Because that's the date of issuance, yeah.
Did you change the date after they
Right.
approved it?
Couldn't figure out how I ever
Can we
made a living.
do the minutes at the
Same
next
time.
meeting? This is a pretty big minutes, and I haven't had a chance to read them at all.
Oh, I would be okay with that.
Anybody object to that?
Would anybody mind if we delayed, put off reading the minutes till,
Solar panel.
till,
Next meeting?
We just have one more thing I have one more thing I want
Hold
to.
on, we're working with the
Oh,
minutes.
okay.
Do you guys
Solar
mind?
pen, it flies. Okay.
Do you gentlemen mind?
No.
No, what are we minding?
Hold off on the minutes until the
We're gonna
next
vote on the
meeting. I
minutes at our
haven't had a
next
chance to
No,
read
that's
them, and
fine.
this is like
That's fine. I don't
a
have a
lot of
problem with that.
pages.
I don't have a problem with that.
That's all right with you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll put that off.
Brooke has one more
I just have
thing.
one more thing. You have a letter there, Jim? It's a complaint letter that we got
Okay, is that
for...
legal notice of that?
No,
The NOI.
I'll take that notice, though.
I'm sorry, I'll take that. Nope.
Nope,
in
no,
your
this,
hand.
this thing I've signed, yes.
This.
There's so many papers there.
Sorry.
today.
I'm glad they gave you extra room, Jim, I'll tell you.
This is the,
I'm going to take these
Okay.
back, the public hearing notices.
okay, oh, that's, yes, okay, these are neighbors of the fellow who was here.
Yes,
Today.
it was on as a site visit today,
Yeah.
so I wanted you to just read it into
Just
the...
have to have an
Okay.
initial on it. Tim.
We have a letter regarding a situation that the Conservation Commission looked at and moved on, actually. It's from Jeffrey Merritt and Joseph Bassanotti, 14 Andrews Point Road. And it says, "Dear sirs, we're filing this request to ask you for your help. We are at a wit's end with this matter and are asking for assistance. Our attempts to privately solve this with the Bennies has not produced any solution. On August 05, 2019, we sent Mark and Rebecca Benny at 22 Lakeview Street a certified letter requesting that the cease and removal of the composting and vegetation waste that abuts our property line at 14 Andrews Point Road. This letter was sent after a personal request was made to the Bennies to no avail. In fact, they just moved the piles closer to us and closer to Sampson Pond after that request. This certified letter was received by the Bennies on 8/10/19, and the next day they continued the piling. Piles of waste are 5 feet by 50 feet by 4 feet high, 1,000 cubic feet, right along the mutual property line. Piles are contained within a galvanized 3-inch by 4-inch mesh and 4-foot high fence with an orange plastic storm fence material on the inside. The piles consist of cut grass, vegetables, and actually, this is not Conservation Commission. This is the building.
They put the fence in.
Yeah, right.
Within 100 feet.
I know, but that's the building inspector should handle this. I think.
I mean, the Bennies know that they're not supposed to be doing anything near the water with a permit. And, I mean, and some of that is Board of Health, the rodents and the
Yeah.
stuff like that with the... But we went and looked at it, and at least Savory and I did, and they put the fence up.
Right.
What?
They put the fence up.
They put a fence up.
Okay.
Without an NOI or
Yeah.
Anything.
Is the fence on their property totally?
I'm sorry?
The fence?
It's right on the edge of their property.
It's on their border,
It's on their border. Okay.
and it goes down to the water's edge.
And it goes down to
So
the
it's
water's
within
edge.
100 feet.
Oh, it's,
within
60
65.
Within 20 feet.
Yeah, and the piles of grass clippings and all the other stuff.
So that doesn't
is
work.
also-
They've got a,
Yeah, the piles of grass clippings have basically created a dam that don't allow for free flow of water. It's,
Never mind what seeps into the
It's-
water
I was
itself.
going to say, then you have what seeps into the water.
it's
Nitrogen
a,
and everything else.
it's a wire fence, but the holes are probably this big, so.
Chicken wire?
No, this big.
This is spike thing
But-
going on up there?
Yeah, but, I mean,
It
so
is, but-
wildlife can't go
This whole
between it.
Andrews Point thing.
And
is
they've
a
got
half
plastic
inch in
snow
the
fencing between the wire, orange.
Okay, well, I still don't think it's Conservation Commission.
Well, it is
Within
if the
100
fence is
feet it
within
is.
100 feet.
Okay, that's true. Well, so what we should then, okay, we will have to tell the building inspector to go out, and because he's the one who's going to have to issue the order saying, you gotta clean this up, gotta do this, gotta do that. We don't do that sort of thing. He's the enforcement officer. So,
But
he
not
probably
when it
won't.
comes to the
Well, no, him, he
wetlands.
won't.
We can enforce,
We can enforce
we
within
can
100 feet.
enforce the
We can-
wetlands.
we can
It's up
issue
to
an
you, Jim,
enforcement.
whatever you think is
We
right.
could issue an enforcement order for it, but he's the one that really has to go,
I would issue an enforcement order
I think
on that.
his
I would ask them
purview
to
would
come in and
be,
talk about it.
yes, maybe
Yeah.
that's the best thing.
I think we'd ask them to come in, so
Yeah,
instead
well-
of giving an input, because they are coming in, actually, at some point, a notice of intent to fix that retaining wall.
Rather than reading this, let us give him a copy of it and tell him we'd like to have him come in and discuss it with us. How's that at our next meeting?
I'm for that.
Yeah,
I'm for
yeah,
that.
Okay,
yeah,
that's good, Jim. Yeah.
yeah.
And that way, he will present his view of it, we'll present our view of it.
Right.
And I very strongly feel that it's something that he should be
The
handling.
complainant should also come in, though, no?
Yeah. but
Yeah,
the
he will,
complaint-
he was willing to come
We
tonight.
need the Hatfields and McCoys here. We
Yeah.
need them both.
Right.
Yeah, he was willing to come tonight, but I said, we'll just talk about it and
bring
we'll
a
see.
file.
what-
And the Benny should be notified.
There's a lot of that. going
Well,
on.
we'll send them a
Benny should
letter and
come in,
have them
right.
come to the next meeting and say that they probably know they got that complaint, I'm pretty sure.
But it's-
But I felt like we had to do something because he filed a formal complaint
It's
form.
clearly an alteration.
And they did do something within 100 feet,
Yeah,
so,
especially
you know.
with the
You
nitrogen
don't
and
need
everything
building
else flowing
permits
into
for
the
a
lake.
fence. You still can't put it up within 100 feet of the water.
That's true. You know, we're very- a little bit of a feel is a little exaggeration.
Well, there might be. All right, so that being said, the minutes of the next time, of the next meeting, which is when?
September 18th.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second that.
Motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass unanimous. We're adjourned.
The next meeting is September 18th.
All right, September 18th.
Because
Okay.
there's 4